Stop explaining yourself to those who vibrate low. Your energy says it all. David's hand shook as he held the phone. On the other end of the line, the sister's voice echoed, full of accusations. You've always been selfish. Mom is sick and you don't even show up. What kind of person have you become? He hung up without answering, not because there was no explanation. Not because he couldn't list all the times he tried to help, all the weekends he spent taking care of his mother while his sister was away, all the ignored phone calls when he needed support. He turned it off because, for the first time in 42 years, he understood something Nikola Tesla had discovered in 1899, alone in his Colorado laboratory. Certain frequencies don't communicate with each other. You don't explain light to those who chose to live in darkness. David was sitting in the empty office of his old company. Empty because he had resigned 3 weeks earlier. Empty because all the colleagues he considered friends stopped talking to him when they heard about the decision. You're throwing everything away, they said. This job was his future. But David saw no future there. I only saw bodies walking in circles, repeating the same conversations about the same problems, living the same days for 30 years until retirement. He saw people complaining about life while they were afraid to change it. People who said he was crazy for wanting something different. He wasn't crazy. It was just vibrating at another frequency. 3 months ago, something had changed inside him. It was not a dramatic event. It was an ordinary morning, drinking coffee, when he realized that he could no longer pretend to be interested in the things that everyone around him considered important. The office gossip, judgments about neighbors, the endless complaints about politics, traffic, weather. It was as if a switch had been flipped in his consciousness, and suddenly, he saw the world with a clarity that hurt. I saw the masks people were wearing. I felt the heavy energy of the environments. He noticed how certain conversations drained his vitality, while others, rare, very rare, made him feel alive. He tried to share this with his wife, Karen. I think we need to change some things in our lives, he said one night. Change what? She replied without taking her eyes off the television. Everything. The way we live, the people we spend time with, what we do on the weekends. Karen laughed. It was a short, sharp laugh. You're having an existential crisis, David. It will pass. But it didn't happen. Every day, the distance between what he felt and what the world around him expected of him grew, and the more he tried to explain, the worse it got. People didn't want to understand. They wanted him to go back to normal, to comfortable, to insurance. Tesla knew this. When he tried to explain his views on free energy, wireless communication, frequency waves that connected all matter in the universe, he was called a dreamer, crazy. They asked for proof that their limited eyes could see, while Tesla tried to show the invisible. David was not Tesla, but I understood now the price of vibrating differently. His mother was really sick. He had spent the last 6 months caring for her in silence while his sister posted on social media about family and unconditional love. When he suggested an alternative treatment he had researched, his sister called him irresponsible. When he proposed hiring a nurse to lighten the load, he was told he wanted to free himself from the responsibility. It didn't matter what he did. The narrative was already written. David was the selfish one, the different, the one who abandoned family values. He looked out the window of the empty office. Outside, the city was buzzing, millions of people running to places they didn't want to be, doing things they didn't love, spending time with people who didn't inspire them, all because that was what was expected, because it was safe, because explaining a different choice was impossible, and maybe that was exactly why he shouldn't try anymore. If you're enjoying this story and feel like it's touching something real inside you, subscribe to the channel. What comes next will change the way you see your relationships and your energy. David put his phone in his pocket. He took a deep breath, and for the first time, he didn't feel guilty about hanging up. The letter was on the kitchen table when he got home. It was no ordinary letter. It was handwritten on thick paper, with elegant handwriting that seemed from another time. There was no sender, just his name on the front. David. He opened it slowly. You feel it, don't you? The incompatibility. It's not loneliness, it's frequency. When you raise your vibration, the world doesn't reject you. It simply can't reach you anymore. Just like a radio tuned to FM doesn't pick up AM waves. It's not about right or wrong. It's physics. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., Cafe Central, Table of Bottom. Come if you want to understand why you no longer need to explain yourself. No subscription. David read it 3 times. His first instinct was to throw it away. Probably some prank from former coworkers. Or worse, some motivational coaching scheme that got your address. But there was something in the letter that bothered him. The word frequency. He hadn't talked about it with anyone except Karen. And Karen certainly wouldn't write something like that. What is this? Karen entered the kitchen, saw the letter in her hands. I don't know. Someone left. She took the envelope, examined it. Strange. Are you going? Of course not. but he went. Cafe Central was one of those old places that had stood the test of time, with exposed brick walls and bronze light fixtures. David arrived 5 minutes late, on purpose. I didn't want to seem anxious. The back table was occupied by a gray-haired woman, perhaps 60 years old, wearing a dark wool coat. She didn't look up as he approached, just gestured to the empty chair in front of her. "Sit down, David. Who are you?" Someone who stopped explaining himself a long time ago. She finally faced him. The eyes were a deep gray, almost silver. "My name is Eleanor, and before you ask, no, this is not a cult. I'm not going to ask you for money. I have nothing to sell." David remained standing. "So, what do you want?" "Sit down and have a coffee. Talk to someone who understands what you are going through. Because I went through the same thing 15 years ago." There was something in her voice, a calm that was not artificial, a certainty that didn't come from arrogance, but from experience. David, against his better judgment, sat down. Eleanor ordered 2 coffees without asking what he wanted. "You've lost people recently," she said. It wasn't a question. "How?" "It's not guesswork, it's standard. When someone starts to vibrate differently, the first symptom is withdrawal. Friends disappear. Family members call you changed. The marriage becomes tense." David felt a shiver. "Are you following me?" "I don't need to. Your energy tells the story." Eleanor stirred the sugar into her coffee with slow movements. "Let me guess. You tried to explain how you feel." He tried to make people understand that it's not about abandoning them. It's about growing. Tried to show that you are not the problem. And the more you explained, the worse it got. Every word was a sharp edge of truth. "How do you know that?" "Because I did the same thing. I spent 2 years trying to justify my choices. I lost my sister in this process. She died thinking I had abandoned her, when in fact I was just trying to breathe." The pain in Eleanor's voice was real, old but still pulsating. "I'm sorry," David murmured. "Me too. But I learned something that Tesla tried to teach and no one wanted to hear. You can't lower your frequency to be understood. You can only invite others to rise, and most will refuse." David took a sip of his coffee. It was strong, bitter. "And why did you look for me?" Eleanor smiled for the first time, a sad but genuine smile. "Because you are at a point of choice. I saw it on your face when you walked in. You still believe that if you explain yourself correctly, if you find the right words, people will understand, but they won't. And if you don't stop trying, you'll destroy yourself. So what do? Do I abandon everyone? Do I turn my back? No. You just stop casting pearls before swine." She leaned forward. "Do you know what Tesla's biggest mistake was? He died trying to prove himself to a world that wasn't ready to listen to him. He died poor, alone, ridiculed, not because he was wrong, but because he spent energy trying to convince those who operated in another dimension of consciousness." David felt something moving inside him, a mix of anger and relief. "Your sister," Eleanor continued, "she wants you to go back to who you were. Because the old version of you made you feel safe, comfortable. The new version scares you. It reflects the choices she didn't have the courage to make. You don't know my sister. I don't need to. I know the pattern." Eleanor finished her coffee. "The question isn't whether you're right or wrong. It's, are you going to keep emptying yourself trying to fill leaky glasses?" Silence. David looked out the cafe window. Outside, people were walking hurriedly, each carrying their invisible burdens, their social masks, their dense frequencies. "Why did you choose me?" he asked. Eleanor became serious. "Because I've seen what happens when someone like you gives up, when someone with the potential to vibrate high bends to fit, when someone turns off their own light so as not to disturb the darkness of others. And what happens? The world loses, and you become a ghost of yourself." She got up, put money on the table. "I have a proposal. For the next 7 days you will do an experiment. You won't explain yourself to anyone. Not to your sister, not to your wife, not for former colleagues. Just watch what happens when you stop justifying your existence. What if everything falls apart?" Eleanor looked him in the eye. "Then it wasn't yours. It was just an illusion that you were sustaining alone." She handed him a small card. It only had a phone number. "Call me on the 8th day and tell me what you discovered." Eleanor left the cafe without looking back. David stood there, holding the card, feeling something change in the air around him, as if an invisible door had opened. And on the other side, something waited. He didn't know it yet, but that conversation had planted a seed that would change everything. Day 1 of the experiment. David woke up to 23 unread messages. Sister's 17, Karen's 4, 2 from former colleagues asking if he was okay. He read them all. None responded. Not out of anger, not out of pride, but because Eleanor had ignited something inside him. The curiosity to discover who he was when he wasn't justifying it. Karen noticed it during breakfast. "Did you see your sister's messages?" "See, and nothing." Karen set the cup down hard. "David, she's worried about you, with your mother. The whole family is talking about you missing." He chewed the toast slowly. "I didn't disappear. I'm here. You know what I mean." "I know, But I'm not going to explain myself, Karen. Her eyes narrowed. Since when did you become so cold? Cold, the word echoed. It was funny how people confused inner peace with coldness, how they interpreted the lack of reaction as indifference. David finished his coffee, kissed his wife's forehead, and went out for a walk. In the following days, something extraordinary began to happen. On the second day, the sister stopped sending messages. In the third, Karen tried a different approach. Exaggerated affection, superficial conversations, as if testing the waters. On the fourth day, 2 old friends invited him to happy hour. He refused without explaining. I just can't today. But why? I just can't. Silence on the other side. Then a dry, okay. On the 5th day, David noticed something that perplexed him. He felt lighter, as if every explanation not given was one less weight, as if each justification swallowed was a chain coming loose. He began to observe people with newness. I saw how they contorted themselves to please, how they explained themselves compulsively, even when no one asked, how they carried guilt for choices that were their right. In the supermarket queue, a woman apologized 3 times for taking so long to find her card. The cashier hadn't even complained, but she was already justifying herself. Sorry, I forgot where I put it, you know how it is. I'm so tired today. David recognized himself in her. How many times had he explained himself in advance? How many excuses did you make for existing the way you were? On the 6th day, Karen exploded. Are you having an affair? He was reading on the couch. He raised his eyes. What? You've changed. It's far away. Don't talk to me. He doesn't care about anything. Not true. Then explain to me what's going on. And there it was. The trap. Demand disguised as concern. Explain to me. As if he owed satisfaction over his own thoughts. As if his silence was an offense. David closed the book. Karen, I love you, but I'm not going to explain myself. Why not? Because I don't need to. She recoiled as if she had been slapped. Who do you think you are? The question floated in the air, and David realized she wasn't mad at him. I was scared, afraid that he had found something she hadn't yet found, afraid that his peace would expose her inner chaos. He stood up, walked to her, held her hands. I am someone who is learning not to empty myself to fill others. Karen pulled her hands back. That's selfish. Or it's health. She left, slamming the bedroom door. David stood there, standing in the room, and for the first time in years, he didn't run after him. He didn't knock on the door. He didn't beg to talk. He let the silence speak for him. On the 7th day, he visited his mother. She was in the wheelchair, looking out the window. The sister was not there as usual. David prepared tea, added sugar just the way she liked it. You look different, she said, without taking her eyes off the window. Am I? More present. The word surprised him. He had expected accusations, charges, but his mother just looked at him with those tired eyes, full of wrinkles that told stories she never shared. Your sister said you abandoned the family. David took a sip of his tea. I know. And abandoned? No. Then why does she say that? He thought of Eleanor. He thought about Tesla. He thought about the 23 unanswered messages, the conversations he didn't have, the justifications he swallowed. Because she needs a villain, he finally said. And I applied for the job for too long. The mother smiled. It was a small, almost imperceptible smile. But it was there. You're just like your father. David frowned. Dad was quiet. No, he was selective. He knew that some battles are won in silence. She turned to him. He never explained himself, and he was the freest man I knew. Something broke inside David, a dam he didn't know he was holding back. Tears came, silent, hot. The mother reached out a trembling hand, touched her face. You don't need her approval, son, or mine. You just need yours. That night, David called Eleanor. 8th day, she answered. How did you know I was going to call right now? Because everyone calls on the 8th day. 7 days is how long it takes for the mask to fall off. He heard the smile in her voice. So, what did you find out? David looked around. The house was silent. Karen slept in the room. Outside, the city breathed in its frenetic rhythm. I discovered that I was sustaining relationships that had already ended. I was filling leaky glasses, as you said. And now? Now, I don't know. I feel like I've awakened, but I'm alone in this awakening. Eleanor was silent for a moment. Then he said something David would never forget. You are not alone. You are just vibrating at a frequency where there are fewer people. And that, my dear, is not loneliness. It is spiritual, natural selection. But it hurts. All evolution hurts. All metamorphosis requires you to let something die. The caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly without destroying everything it knew. David took a deep breath. What do I do now? You stop explaining yourself. Forever. And notice who remains when you stop bowing. These are your people. The rest is just noise that you mistook for music. He hung up the phone and stood there, in the darkness, feeling something new being born inside him. Something dangerous, something free. The turnaround came from where he least expected it. 2 weeks after the experiment, David received a call from his mother. It wasn't common for her to call. She usually sent short messages or asked her sister to make contact. "David, I need you to come here, now." The voice was firm, without the usual tremor. When he arrived, he found his mother sitting at the kitchen table, alone, not in a wheelchair, but in a regular chair. Standing, leaning on her cane, was her sister, but not with her usual victimized posture. She looked defeated. "Sit down," the mother ordered. David obeyed, confused. The sister avoided his gaze. "I discovered something," the mother began, pushing an envelope across the table. "And you two are going to listen to what I have to say." Inside the envelope were bank statements, many, all in the sister's name. "In the last 3 years," the mother continued, her voice sharp, "your sister embezzled almost $40,000 from my account. Small amounts, 100 here, 200 there. Transfers that she said were for medicines, consultations, treatments." David felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. "Mom, I can explain," the sister began. "Quiet." Mom's voice echoed through the kitchen. "You're going to listen now. You who spent 3 years telling me that your brother was selfish, that he didn't care, that he only thought about himself." The sister started to cry. Convenient tears. David recognized now. Meanwhile, the mother continued, turning to David. "You came here in silence. You paid bills I didn't even know existed. You hired the night nurse anonymously. You renovated the bathroom so I could get in with the chair. And you never ever told me." David was speechless. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" the mother asked, and for the first time there were tears in her eyes too. He looked at his sister, then at his mother, and the answer came clear. "Because anyone who needs to explain themselves is asking for permission to exist, and I don't need permission anymore." It was Tesla who had said, "Science is only a perversion of itself, unless it has as its ultimate aim the betterment of mankind." David had spent years trying to improve relationships that didn't want to be improved, trying to enlighten people who preferred darkness. The sister stood up abruptly. "You've always been the favorite, always, no matter what I do. You stole from me," the mother cut in. "Don't try to reverse it." "I needed the money. I have bills, I have problems, you don't understand, and I have problems too." David finally spoke, his voice low but firm. "I have a marriage falling apart. I have an existential crisis that makes me question everything. I have nights where I don't sleep because I feel completely out of place in this world." He got up. "But you know what I don't have? The need to use my pain as an excuse to hurt others. The need to make myself the victim while draining the people I love." His sister stared at him with pure hatred. "Do you think you're better than everyone now? Since you changed, you became this enlightened being." "No." David shook his head. "I just stopped bowing, and you mistook that for arrogance." The silence that followed was dense. The mother broke the moment. "Your sister will pay you back every penny. And you," she looked at David, "will forgive me for believing her lies for so long." David felt something strange. It wasn't victory. It was not satisfaction for justice being done. It was empty, as if the validation he had sought for so long had come too late. He didn't need her anymore. "Mom, there is nothing to forgive. You believed what seemed true. She was convincing, and you were too silent." It was, but silence is not weakness. Sometimes it is the most powerful strength there is. The sister left without saying goodbye. The door slammed, and David knew that noise carried years of resentment, envy, and pain that would never be healed. Not because he didn't want to, but because healing requires both sides to want it, and she didn't want to. When David got home that night, Karen was in the living room, but not alone. Eleanor was there. "Surprise," Karen said, and there was something different in her voice. Vulnerability. "I looked for her. I needed to understand what was happening to you. And she told me things." David looked at Eleanor, who just nodded slightly. Karen stood up. "I thought you were abandoning me. I thought I was having a crisis, an outburst, whatever. But Eleanor explained to me about frequencies, about vibration, and I realized," she paused, bit her lip, "I realized that I'm scared. Scared that you'll grow up and I'll be left behind. Scared that you'll find a version of yourself that doesn't need me anymore." David approached. "Karen, no," she raised her hand. "Let me finish. I've spent these days watching you, watching how you've become lighter, how you no longer drown in arguments, how you don't justify yourself, and I saw something that scared me. You no longer need my approval." Tears streamed down her face, and it made me realize that I always needed yours. I always leaned on you to feel valid, and when you stopped giving me that, I panicked. David held her face in his hands. "You don't need my approval, Karen. You need your own." "I know. Eleanor showed me that." Karen looked at the older woman. "She told me about her sister, about how she died thinking Eleanor had rejected her, when in reality Eleanor was just trying to survive." Eleanor stood up. "I'll let you talk. But first, David, I want you to know, What happened to your sister today is not the end. It's the beginning, because now you understand the difference between being understood and being free. She walked to the door, paused. Tesla died alone because he believed he needed recognition from the world. You won't make the same mistake, because you already understand. Your energy says everything, and whoever is ready to listen to it, listens. The others are just noise. Eleanor left. David and Karen stood there, in the middle of the room, looking at each other as if it were the first time. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered. "Then don't try to hold me back. Fly with me." And for the first time in months, they hugged without masks, without expectations, without the need to explain themselves. Just two frequencies trying to finally tune into each other. 6 months later, David was in a place he never imagined. Peace. Not the artificial peace of superficial motivations or meaningless repeated mantras, but the deep peace of someone who stopped betraying themselves to please ghosts. The sister never returned the money. He disappeared for 3 months, then reappeared with an elaborate story about what the real victim was like. Some family members believed it. Others pretended to believe because it was more comfortable than facing the truth. David didn't explain himself, didn't respond. He didn't expose her publicly, just moved on. And something extraordinary happened. His lack of reaction was more powerful than any defense could have been, because people who vibrate low feed on reactions. They feed on drama, attention, conflict. When you stop feeding them, they wither away alone. The mother recovered better than doctors expected. During their weekly visits, she and David developed something they had never had before. Real conversations, no masks, no social roles, just mother and son. Two souls trying to understand this strange thing called existence. "I spent my whole life explaining myself to your father," she confessed one day, "trying to justify why I wasn't like other wives, why I read books instead of baking perfect cakes, why I questioned instead of just accepting. And he understood you?" She smiled. "He stopped asking for explanations, and that's when I knew he really loved me. Because true love doesn't require you to translate. It accepts the language you speak." Karen was in therapy, not because David demanded it, but because she realized she needed it. They were still together, but the relationship had changed. No, it was more based on emotional dependence or predefined roles. Some nights were difficult, some conversations ended in uncomfortable silences, but others were magical. Moments when their frequencies aligned and they really saw each other without filters. "I'm still scared," she admitted one night, lying in bed, "afraid that you will reach a level that I cannot reach. Then catch up," David said softly. "Not for me, for you. What if I don't make it?" He turned to her. "So I'll love you from where I am, and you'll love me from where you are. And maybe that will be enough, or maybe not, but at least it will be true." True, that word that scared so many people. David had started a project. It wasn't grand. It wasn't going to change the world. It was just a small online support group for people who felt what he had felt, the loneliness of vibrating differently. It started with 5 people. In 3 months, there were 200. They shared stories, not to seek validation, but to remind each other, "You're not crazy. You're only awake in a world that prefers to sleep." Eleanor participated sometimes. She talked about her sister, about the years of guilt, about how she finally forgave herself for not having lowered her frequency to be understood. "The greatest lesson Tesla never learned," she said in one of the meetings, "was that genius without inner peace is just sophisticated suffering." He was right about everything, energy, frequency, vibration, but he got one thing wrong. He still wanted approval, and that killed him inside. One of the participants, a young woman named Lisa, asked, "But how do you do it? How do you deal with the pain of being misunderstood by the people you love?" Eleanor was silent for a moment. "You don't deal, you accept. You accept that love doesn't always mean understanding. You accept that you can love someone deeply and still not be energetically compatible. You accept that letting go is not abandonment, it's liberation, theirs and yours," David added. "And you understand that your energy says it all. The right people will feel it, they will recognize it, not because you explained yourself well, but because you speak the same vibrational language." Months became a year. The sister tried to get back together once. He sent a long message, full of elaborate excuses and justifications. David read it. He took a deep breath, and he simply replied, "I forgive you, and I wish you peace. But there is no room for the two of us in this relationship as long as you need me to be the villain in your story." She didn't respond, and everything was fine, because David had learned the difference between a bridge and a door. Bridge you build to connect, you close the door to protect. Some people deserve bridges, others deserve locked doors and you moving on. One night he was home alone. Karen had gone out with friends, something she hadn't done in years but now did regularly, rediscovering who she was beyond being a wife. David was in his office, looking out the window, when he noticed something extraordinary. He didn't feel alone. "For the first time in my life, Loneliness was not absence. It was presence. Presence of himself, complete, without having to fragment himself to fit other people's expectations. He took out a notebook, something he had started doing, writing down thoughts, and wrote down, Tesla said that if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. But he forgot to tell you the most important part. You don't need to make the universe understand you. You just need to vibrate in your truth and watch who resonates. The phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello? David? The voice was male, young. My name is Marcus. I've been a part of your online group for a few months, and I just wanted to thank you. To thank? I was going to give up everything. I thought I was going crazy because I could no longer pretend to be interested in the things that everyone around me thought was important. I thought I was selfish for wanting more out of life, and then I found your group. His voice shook, and I realized I'm not crazy. I'm just awake, and it saved me, man. It literally saved me. David closed his eyes. He felt something warm in his chest. Marcus, you saved yourself. I just showed you that you weren't alone. No, you did more than that. You stopped explaining yourself, and that gave me permission to do the same. They talked for another 20 minutes. When he hung up, David realized that was the answer. It wasn't about convincing the world. It wasn't about making people understand. It was about vibrating so authentically that you became a beacon. And lighthouses don't chase ships. They just shine. And whoever needs the light finds it. Karen arrived home late, beaming. You're happy, he observed. I am. Do you know why? She sat down next to him. Because today I did something I've never done. When my friend started complaining about her husband for the 1,000th time, I didn't give advice. And I didn't try to fix it. I just said, you already know what you need to do. The question is, when will you have the courage to do it? She laughed. She was furious with me. Said I changed, that I'm cold. And you felt bad? No, because I realized she doesn't want a solution. She wants an audience. And I'm no longer anyone's audience. Not even mine. David pulled her close. You understand? I am. Finally. They stood there in silence. Two frequencies that were learning to dance together without stepping on each other's toes. Eleanor's final letter arrived 6 months later. She was moving, she said, to a small town in the countryside where he was going to open a center for meditation and vibrational studies. David, you asked me once how I knew you would call on the 8th day. The truth? I didn't know, but I bet, because people like us always call. They always search. They always want to understand. But now you know the secret. There is nothing to understand. There is just living, vibrate, being. Your energy says it all, and whoever needs to listen, listens. The others are just noise that you've mistaken for music for too long. Live your frequency, David, without apologizing, without explaining. Just vibrate. The universe will hear you, and the right people too. With vibrational love, Eleanor. David folded the letter carefully. He kept it along with Tesla's writings that he had collected, and then he did something symbolic. He deleted draft emails he never sent, the ones where he tried to explain himself to old friends, to distant family members, to people who were no longer in his life but still occupied space in his mind. Each exclusion was a liberation. When he finished, he looked at the sky through the window. The stars shone, indifferent to the human chaos, each vibrating at its own frequency, without explaining itself, without justifying itself, just existing, being, shining. And David finally understood. He no longer needed to explain himself. His energy said it all, and that was more than enough. Final lesson. Stop translating your light to those who chose darkness. Stop lowering your frequency to be understood. Stop emptying yourself to fill leaky cups. Your energy tells the whole story, and whoever is ready to listen, listens without you having to shout. The others? They're just noise that you mistook for music. Turn off the volume, and hear finally the symphony of your own soul. Vibrating high is not selfish. It is spiritual survival. It is energetic honesty. It's the only real form of love, starting with yourself. If this story touched something true within you, if you recognized your own journey in these words, subscribe to the channel. Share this frequency, because the world needs more people who stopped explaining themselves and finally started living. Your energy says it all, and that's enough.